It was the summer of 1967. For one brief moment, the world seemed to spin around the corner of Haight and Ashbury in San Francisco. A place where flowers replaced flags, where music replaced speeches, and where love, or what people believed love could be, became a revolution of its own. They called it the Summer of Love. A time when nearly 100,000 young people, dreamers, poets, dropouts, and believers poured into San Francisco. They came to remake the world with peace, color, and consciousness. They arrived with guitars and hope, with long hair and no plans, from across America and beyond, Chicago, New York, London. They drifted toward the foggy hills of California, drawn by whispers of freedom and the promise of something pure. San Francisco was no longer just a city. It was a pilgrimage. In those days, America was changing fast. The Vietnam War raged. Civil rights marched through the South. The nation was tired, divided, searching for something it couldn't quite name. And somehow, at the far edge of the continent, young people decided they could start again. Without war, without judgment, without fear, Haight-Ashbury became their ground zero. Once a quiet working-class neighborhood, it turned into a living experiment. A patchwork of communes, free kitchens, incense smoke, and music echoing through painted Victorian houses. Here, everything was shared. Food was free. Love was free. Art was free. The Diggers, a group of anarchic performers, opened free stores and free clinics, proving that generosity could be a weapon against greed. They believed life itself could be theater, that every action could be art. People began to live those ideals. They dressed in color instead of conformity, spoke in poetry instead of slogans, and dreamed with a kind of naive courage that only youth can carry. The soundtrack of this new world echoed from every corner. Janis Joplin's voice soared over Golden Gate Park. Jefferson Airplane, The Grateful Dead, and The Doors filled the air with rebellion and wonder. Music was not just entertainment. It was communion. The Monterey Pop Festival that June was the spiritual beginning of the Summer of Love. Tens of thousands gathered, not to protest, but to feel alive together. For a moment, it seemed the dream might actually last. Behind it all, the hum of change grew louder. Sherry, the birth control pill, had given women control over their own futures. Chateau and LSD, once a military experiment, had leaked into the streets and become the tool of a new kind of exploration. It's not of space, but of the mind. To many, it was more than a drug. It was a key to open perception itself. To others, it was the beginning of chaos. Yet in those early days, it felt like magic. What united them all wasn't politics. It was possibility. They believed that if enough people refused to live by the rules, if they simply walked away, the old world would collapse under its own weight. In their eyes, peace wasn't naive. It was revolutionary. They painted signs that read, "Turn on, tune in, drop out." And they did. To outsiders, they looked lost. But to themselves, they were found. They built a community around empathy, creativity, and the idea that love could be a social structure. For one brief summer, the impossible didn't just seem possible, it was happening. But the dream, like all utopias, began to fade. By midsummer, the crowds had swollen beyond control. Tens of thousands flooded Haight-Ashbury, not all of them seeking enlightenment. Some came for drugs, others for exploitation. The purity of the early days was poisoned by chaos. The same streets that had been filled with flowers now carried fear. Overdoses, theft, and violence became daily news. The media, once enchanted, now called it the hippie invasion. By the end of '67, the Diggers staged one last performance, a mock funeral they called the Death of Hippie. They marched with a coffin through the streets of San Francisco, mourning the dream they had tried to build. And just like that, the summer of love was over. Never lost the sense that things could be different. San Francisco changed forever. Haight Street filled again with stores and tourists, but the ghosts of '67 still linger. In the murals, the laughter, and the scent of patchouli in the air. The summer of love didn't end. It simply grew older, like the people who lived it. And even now, decades later, you can still feel its heartbeat in every song that preaches peace, in every protest that demands freedom, in every dreamer who refuses to give up. It was only one summer, but it changed everything. It altered how America saw itself, and how the world saw America. It gave birth to ideas that outlived the music, the drugs, and the haze. Night, that love could be a movement, that art could be rebellion. And that freedom, real freedom, begins when you stop asking permission to be yourself. For a few months in 1967, San Francisco was not just a place, it was a possibility. And for everyone who was there, or wished they had been, it will always be the summer of love. If you felt something watching this, continue the journey. See also Woodstock brought back to life with AI, and feel how this revolution spread across the world.